Hey there, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. Join Brittany as she interviews incredible people whose stories will uplift you and remind you the life you long for is just ahead. Buckle up for an inspirational ride to your best life. Take it away, Britt.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. I am so excited to have you here today listening to an incredible conversation that I know you're going to be just floored by. And I get to have the same experience that you're going to have. So this is a new guest, someone I've never met and never had the opportunity to meet in person. But thank goodness for Riverside and virtual presence. And I'm able to bring her from all the way in Utah right into my screen here in Wilmington. And I am extremely grateful and really excited to see how this conversation just unfolds and how you're going to be impacted by it. So I'm going to get right and introduce her because the questions are good. Her story is incredible. And I know that she's going to inspire you. So Lynn is a mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter, an entrepreneur, an immigration attorney. She's a podcast host, leader, and servant heart. I almost had to take a pause because there's so many beautiful things. So please welcome Linh Tran-Layton to the Brittany Wheeler Show. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Brittany, for having me on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Seriously. We were talking offline, just getting to sit in this space with you, get to know you more, get to hear more of your story. It's an honor for me. And I know that the guests are going to feel the exact same way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I'm excited to share my story and be a guest. So
I love it. And you aren't foreign to podcasting, which is also fun. You want to have another, a host and a creator on because they get it. It's an unspoken understanding.
Yes. I had created a podcast. It started in 2020 called The Immigrant Voice. And the purpose of that podcast was to interview immigrants essentially and have them tell their stories. That was a lot of fun, but I was doing everything, editing, setting everything up, and it just became a lot with everything else I had to do. But it was actually a lot of fun.
It's so cool. And what I'll make sure to do at the end and in the show notes is put the link to your show because, all the episodes you have are so rich and eclectic and different countries and origins. And so definitely worth people getting a chance to listen. And if you decide to rebirth in a new season, you'll have an audience that's ready for you.
Right. Yes. I think at some point I do want to start it up again. But it's been quite busy lately.
Yes. We are recording currently in February 2025. And so there's just a lot as it relates to immigration for sure. Yeah. This next segment I go into is usually in previous recordings, I was interviewing a lot of people that I knew, a lot of people that I've met. And so honestly, when I was researching you and doing, my due diligence, understanding you a little bit more in your history and your story, I was like, we've never met. This segment won't make sense anymore. And so I had to tweak it a little bit from how we know each other to, obviously either how we were introduced to each other. And ultimately, this is one I love if you're willing to share, why did you say yes to being on the Brittany Wheeler Show?
Well, so we met through a friend named Sarah, and I admire Sarah, respect her greatly. And she had mentioned she was on your podcast and she had a really great time. And she felt like she was talking to like a sister. And I've never been on the other end of being interviewed. So I just thought it would be a great experience to just come on. And that's why I said yes.
Yay. Okay, good.
Yeah, she spoke very highly of you. And so.
She was, her and I had so much fun. At one point, we were in the interview and I was like, did we just agree on something that was so abstract that we've never even thought of, but it's real life? It was great. It was just a really fun conversation. I know today's will be great too. And thank you for saying yes. I know that our audience is going to have a great experience. So jumping right in, I want the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So your family moved from Vietnam to the United States when you were just a year old. Share with the listeners who don't know you why your family came here and what was your childhood like coming to the United States?
Yeah, so my parents were young adults, essentially my mom was teenager during the Vietnam War, kind of that time period. And so my uncle was actually in the Vietnam military for the South, and he was in what would be similar to the Navy here. And then after the war, he actually escaped on a boat. They call them boat people. So he escaped Vietnam on a boat, came to the US, and then through him, he essentially helped my mom and us, my dad and me and my brother, come here. And essentially, it was called the Orderly Departure Program, which is essentially like a refugee program for people from Vietnam and some of the other Southeast Asian countries. And so and again, I don't remember any of this. This is just from my parents telling me. But so we ended up in Thailand at a refugee camp for not long, I think maybe a week or so. And my dad's told me that he had to sell gold, like some of his gold for like better food, but it was not anything like fancy food either, just better. And we were there for maybe about a week or so. And then we flew to the US. And then we came to Utah because that's where my uncle was living at the time. So we came to Utah, and then it's where I grew up. I mean, my parents had me. I was a year old. My older brother, who was 5 at the time, and they came with pretty much nothing. Like they had no money. They didn't know English. They didn't even graduate from elementary school. They were very poor in Vietnam. Like their family was very poor, and they had to work at like a really young age. Like I think my dad said he started working when he was like 5, just trying to help the family. And so, yeah, they came with nothing, and I have 2 children, and it was hard enough. It's hard enough to raise 2 kids, but I can't even imagine going to a whole different country, not even knowing anything, and then having kids with you too. So props to my parents. Yeah, but as far as like my childhood, I mean, my parents worked a lot, and I think for a lot of immigrant children whose parents kind of had a similar background as mine, they can probably relate. Like my parents worked a lot, but for me, like we never went without. Like there was never a time when my parents were like, "Okay, we're gonna get evicted," or "Hey, we don't have food tonight. Sorry." It was never like that. We always had enough, but we did not have like a fancy, like we didn't live fancy or anything.
Right.
Very, I don't know what the word would be. I don't want to say mediocre, but just very simple, I guess.
Yeah.
But to me, it was normal, and I wouldn't say I mean, we didn't do any extracurricular activities. Christmas wasn't like this huge thing with tons of presents or anything, even birthdays. I don't even remember really having a ton of toys. And so, but again, to me, it was normal. Like I didn't ever feel like, at least like materialistically or whatever, that it was terrible or anything like that.
Yeah. I wonder how that like has transitioned for you. Just that experience of humility really as a child of like manna, just enough, right? You never went without, but there was never, shiny things. And then how that kind of like how does that feel now having kids? Kind of like we said, can't imagine your parents, what they went through, knowing what it's like to raise 2 kids, and you wear many hats. But how do you find yourself? I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to embody what it must be like to sit there and kind of be like, is this really happening? And how, you and your husband raise your children and, give them and things like that.
Yeah. Well, our kids have a completely different life than my parents had, and pretty different from what I had too. I mean, I constantly am telling them how lucky they are and reminding them like, hey, your grandparents were, this is what they went through, and this is what I went through as a kid. You guys are very lucky. Like they get to do extracurricular activities. We travel for their sport stuff, like nothing like what it was like when I was a kid. I mean, my
Yeah.
parents didn't even go to parent-teacher conference, really. They maybe went like once. I don't know. It was not. They didn't go to that. They couldn't help us with our homework.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was, we just kind of, I don't know. They were good parents based on, the whatever skills that they had, right? Whatever, kind of whatever they went through as a child, because I know that their childhood was not great,
Yeah.
right? There was a lot of things that they went through. But yeah, our kids just have a completely different life. And at one point, I would say there was a time in my life where I resented my parents a lot because I felt like they didn't understand me, because I kind of had this interesting kind of dynamic in myself where I'm an immigrant, but I'm also very much American, right? Like I
Mm,
came here when I was a year old. So to me, this is pretty much where I was born,
yeah.
even though I
You know
wasn't born
nothing
here.
else.
I know
Yeah.
nothing else. And so, I had the immigrant parents, didn't speak a lot of English at the time. And then I'm trying to kind of navigate that aspect of things, but also trying to fit in, right? Like American culture. And so there was that aspect of it. And I did resent my parents for a while.
Mm,
But as I've gotten older, I've come to understand that they did the best they could with what they had.
yeah.
And so I actually appreciate them now for everything that they had done for us.
Yeah. And there's so much context that gets missed, when we're younger and we're just trying to navigate all of the emotions, right? And like, I just have this image of your parents who grew up in a very different climate. Let's just talk about geography, right? Like, extremely different climate than what they came to in Utah. And, I mean, I don't know as far as diversity how the part of Utah that your uncle was living in you came to, but again, like another layer of being one of the only people from Vietnam that don't speak English, right? And so all these stacked layers of isolation and things that make you different as they're adults, right? And then needing to find work. And so I just had this image of just this humbling moment of watching your parents in my mind come to this place, and yet nothing different. And so it's like, it's so hard because until you got to that place, probably as a young adult, and obviously now as a mom, getting to truly understand and put yourself in their shoes, because there's more that now connects you, right, to what they experienced than potentially what they didn't. And, I grew up with a single mom. I was a product of divorce multiple times. And in my own way have navigated that same thing. And I think what I have experienced was this moment of, it went from resentment to like, I understand, to like, okay, how can I do better? And what do I want that to be for the next generation, the generations like that? And your parents did that exact same thing, right? Like in their own, they literally did that, but it
Yeah.
just looked a lot different. They decided, what are we going to do for our children and our grandchildren to get them away from this? But it just looks different than what you and I potentially are thinking about for the next generation, which that could be a whole podcast, honestly. It's like just the generational curses that we're trying to break, the growth, the wealth, but also like still understanding and finding compassion in how it was done, that got us to this place.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
definitely.
The one thing that you shared on your podcast, which I think is something that you obviously, I don't know you, but I'm like, this is definitely it. And you share on the Immigrant Voice that your parents would say, work hard and achieve anything you want. How has that advice, amongst now you sharing with us, like how much kind of brought wedges and moments between you, right, as you were growing up, because there was a lot of like not feeling seen and heard. How did that
Yeah.
piece of advice prepare you to dream and obviously now prepare your children to dream?
Yeah. So my parents, like I said, they like had no education really. And it's a shame because they're actually very smart. And had they had the opportunity to go to school and whatnot, who knows what they could have become. But they just didn't have that, right? And so obviously they came here. They wanted to come here to give us a better life, because there's no way that my siblings and I would have what we have now had we not come to the U.S. Just based on how my parents grew up. And so, although they couldn't help us with homework or school, figuring all of that stuff out, like they always did say, like, education is the key to your success. You have to work hard. And, like, like for me, I cannot say that I was like this angel perfect child, because I wasn't. I gave them grief for sure. But what held me back from kind of going off the deep end is that I saw how hard they would work, like just for us, right? Like they
Yeah.
worked hard and they really tried to give us the best life that they could. So I didn't want to disappoint them. So that was always in the back of my head, like, okay, I can't disappoint my parents. I know that they work hard for us, even though I was not always the nicest and gave them grief. Like that was always in the back of my mind. Like, okay, I still have to achieve something. I need to make something of myself.
Yeah.
So that everything that I did was not in vain. And so, so my parents would just always say they expected me to get good grades. They expected that I would go to college. And I never really fought that. Like I understood because I knew that if I wanted more than what my parents had in their lives, I had to do more.
Yeah.
And obviously they expected that of me. And so that's how so that they always said, work hard and you can achieve whatever you want.
I don't know if you can relate to this as you were sharing. Even though our stories are different, there's pockets of just, wow, I feel like connected in a sense of, my parents they graduated high school, getting to learn more about my mom as a young adult and realizing that like she had gone all the way to her junior year of college and she had an undiagnosed learning disability and the university didn't take ownership, and it's very convoluted and so messed up. But that was the thing that she would always like focus on, was like, yes, go to school, get good grades, go to college. My sister is a lawyer. I have a master's degree. I'm an entrepreneur. My other sister has a bachelor's in marketing. And yet there was just something about pursuing that, which I felt was right. And same as you, I didn't question it, but I almost felt like even at that level, like my mom didn't quite. And even still sometimes now, like there's almost that disconnect of like, I went and I got the paper and I went and I got those things, but it almost created more distance in many ways between us because there was now a level of relatability that was gone. That like, that you get a master's degree in leadership, you get an undergrad in education. And so I didn't end up going into the field of education, which I'm grateful for, but it was just interesting because while it was the right thing and I don't question it, I'm grateful that I went that path. It also seemed to kind of create a little bit of a distance, even more so than I thought might have happened. So I don't know if you can relate to that at all.
And not quite. And here's
Okay.
why, is because I think in a lot of ways, my parents didn't really know what was going on in my life as far as school and such. And so it almost is like it's still kind of the same now. Like my
Mm.
parents obviously know that like I'm a lawyer, that I have my own practice, but like I don't talk to them about like business stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because I always knew, and maybe they would like me to, right? But I think I just understand that there's a level of understanding that they're not going to get. And
Mm.
that's always been how it has been since I was a child. It sounds kind of sad, right?
I mean, but I feel like you're talking right to me. I'm like, wait, no, but like, I feel in that way, even as an entrepreneur, like that's something that can be isolating, as you know, in and of itself, because it's a very different way from a 9 to 5. And even though you're a lawyer, being an entrepreneur and a lawyer, there's still levels of the isolation. It's running your own business, your own practice.
Yeah.
And so I feel very much like when I got my education degree, my mom understood that. She wanted to be a teacher. That was good. But then to kind of pivot and go into business, it was like, I what you said, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, Lynn, you're speaking right to me because I don't tell my mom a lot of those things. She
Yeah.
asks like what's going on, and there's not necessarily like there is an eagerness to love and support, but not necessarily to understand. And so then I'm like, well, why am I gonna say it?
Yeah.
So that really you spoke to me because I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like my mom just asked me the other day, like, what's new? And I'm like, nothing.
Right. Yes. My parents will ask me, "Oh, how's business going?" And I'm like, "It's good." But like I don't
Yeah.
really expand on that anymore because like I said, I just know that there's always been a level of unrelatability between my parents and I, but not in the sense of like I'm better than them. I would
Right.
no, like
Same.
they gave me life. They they did everything that they could for me to make sure that I could achieve what I achieved. But I just know that like they just wouldn't quite understand it. And so it's always kind of been that way.
Yeah, and I definitely work harder now as a young adult, and I have, I think we all have our own put aside any of the reasons why you're here and your parents coming here, like just the parent, child dynamic. There's a lot that you go through to understand your parents and they understand you. And I think for me, stepping into young adulthood with my mom, I had to take a lot of time to really figure out like, okay, what makes us us? Like, what are the things that we're going to have in common? What are the things that we're going to value? What are the things that we can enjoy doing together? Because those things that we just mentioned, business and my degree and some of those are not things that I can sit around and talk with her. So it did make things a little more challenging for several years of like, okay, and again, like she was my mom and growing up, she worked a lot of times. Like unfortunately, my mom wasn't able to come to, she did do parent teacher conferences, but it was a sacrifice. It was usually having to switch shifts or move around and didn't come to sports. So there wasn't a lot of commonality there. So we really had to work on it. I'd probably say about 3 or 4 years ago, start being really intentional of like, oh, we love to make jam together, and my mom can value good places to go to restaurants. And so, yeah, definitely taking more time. Especially, I think there could be people listening that can relate to that, where they've maybe achieved more than their parents have or have pursued more, and you find that void. So it takes a little more effort to go and figure out what are the things that you can share and can talk about and can experience together. So, for me, it's just taking a little more work.
Yeah.
Which it's fine. But thank you. Wow, I like literally feel like my heart was ripped open. And I was like, she sees me. It's amazing. So, one of the things, again, I think just your story is incredible and what you do and what I found in the research and just me, diving into who you are through all the ways that I could. I believe that you are a steward of dreams, for your clients and those who have paved the way for you. How does that fuel you and potentially even rattle you a little, knowing that you have such a valuable place in those individuals' lives?
Yeah. So I never thought I would be an immigration attorney at all. Like that was not my path in law school. Like I always thought I would work for somebody. Like that was kind of my personality, at least at the time that I thought. And so it kind of, I guess it's come full circle now that I am an immigration attorney. I'm like, okay, I'm doing what somebody else did for my family. And so it's rewarding, right? When you have the clients who, like I've had clients give me the nicest thank you cards and I'm like, wow, okay. Cause sometimes when you're in the weed of things, like you don't really, like I'm just doing my job, right? You don't really think about it. And, you're like, okay, well, yeah, I'm just doing my job. I have to help people. But sometimes I do have to take a step back and be like, wow, okay, like a huge difference has been made in this person's life, in their children's lives, right? And whatever generations are to come in that family tree. And so it's rewarding, but as you mentioned, it can feel very heavy because there's so much at stake, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, what if things get messed up? And that's tough. That can be hard. Sometimes you do get that pit in your stomach where you're like, oh my gosh, like, how is this case going to go? And yeah, that's the hard part about the job. And there are plenty of days and nights where I just sit and think. And sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my gosh, should I do this? Did I remember to do this for this client? And so it can be a lot, but I'm thankful. Like I'm very grateful for where I am. And I never thought I would be a business owner at all. Like I always thought I would work for somebody, but I'm so thankful that the path has led me to where I am because I, in a sense, I create my own schedule. I am able to be there for my kids if I need to. And if I need to work instead at night, fine, right? I don't have somebody that's like, you must work 9 to 5 type of thing. So,
yeah.
But
Well,
it's definitely.
And you didn't originally go, like you were part of a practice that wasn't yours to start. I remember hearing that too. So you even joined somebody to figure out like, oh, like you literally didn't think you were going to ever own. And then the moment came where it was like, okay, I think I'm ready to do this and create your own practice. And that's super cool too, because there could potentially be people listening here that, are kind of navigating those same things as a lawyer, right? No matter what what type of law they're practicing, whether maybe in a firm or they're, in a small practice and just being like, this isn't it, I'm not comfortable. And I can imagine the fear right? Like, what was that like for you stepping out on your own from that?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2009 from law school, and that was a really, like, not a good time economically for the
Yeah, no.
US. And so I was working for a law firm, and then they ended up laying me off. And so I was just, say, change, like 4 months out of law school. And so I was like, "Okay, well, what am I gonna do now?" And the job market wasn't great, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I had called up this attorney who I had helped her a little bit with some stuff during law school. She's an immigration attorney, and I just asked her like, "Hey, do you need any help?" And so she said yes, and then we ended up forming a firm together. About a year or so after, we split up, but amicably. We're still friends. We still talk, and then I formed my current firm now. And it was, I guess, it was scary. Well, I'm trying to think if I was scared. I think at the time I was like, well, this is my option. Like, this is my only option right now.
Mm,
So I kind of just was like, okay, I'm going for it, whatever. And so
yeah.
I went for it, and I've never looked back since. And so, so right now, actually, I'm in the process of transitioning out of this current firm. It's me and another law partner, but I'm going to be breaking off and having my own. Essentially, then it'll be fully my own immigration practice, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I mean, I everything will pretty much remain the same. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the new chapter that's going to be starting. And I think, I mean, this is kind of, if any aspiring law students are listening, or even other attorneys that are listening that are thinking of going out on their own, I know a lot of them were like, "You're so brave," and it's like, well, I don't know. I didn't feel brave. I just was like, it's my only option, so I'm just going to
Yeah.
go for it. Um, but looking back, I think in law school, like the big thing for people, well, in my mind, at least for me, it was like, you need to land a big law firm job because you'll make lots of money. And so, but now that I know what it looks like, I, at this point in my life, I would not go to work at a big law firm.
Yeah.
It just sounds so stressful. And not to say that I'm not stressed out with certain things, but I mean, people at big law firms are working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the amount of money that they're making not doesn't always translate to actually a great hourly rate.
No, it doesn't. Everyone's like, "Oh, they get paid
So,
this much." I'm like, "Yeah, for how many hours?
right.
And when do they see their family? And when, like, no, it doesn't.
Exactly. Exactly.
It doesn't
And yeah,
translate."
no, no. Yeah. And so I think you can make a very good living having your own practice if you do it right.
Yeah, and I think there's, again, I was just thinking, what was your original thought as far as like what type of law you wanted to practice? Where were you headed?
You know what? I don't even know. Like, I just was like, hey, where can I get a job? That was literally like what I thought. I'm like, hey, where can I get a job? I'll learn whatever. Yeah, that was
And
literally my
and here
plan.
you are. I think that's so fun, whether you believe in God or the universe or any higher power, like you basically were like, well, I don't have a decision. And then the decision was like to come back, to bring you back to the roots that brought you, and just to kind of, I think it's so cool because you could have had something in mind. You could be, you know, um, there's so many different kinds of law that you could be
Yeah.
practicing. And the fact that you were like, I don't know. And then the one area that opened up, right? And that you got the job was in the thing that now fuels you and is so much part of your own history and your experience, and a gifting, I think, because there's,
Yeah.
I mean, again, that does not change other people and practices and types of law. But when you've lived it in some way and you can bear your soul, right? Especially in a field like law where it can be, we were talking about offline, it can be like very black and white, and you have to work to kind of bring in the human side sometimes. So the fact that you get to just kind of bear yourself a little bit because you understand them in a way, like that's really unique and beautiful. And I think that's probably what makes you special amongst the many other things in your practice.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. We talk about choosing your heart on this podcast, which is like crazy because we've been talking about a lot of hard things. I'm really excited to hear what you have to share. And, in the podcast, choosing your heart is a crossroad moment. It's a moment where both decisions are hard. For whatever reason, I talk about like Chick-fil-A or versus a salad. And Chick-fil-A, it's easy, it's quick. but it may have a longer impact, that's not so great. Salad's harder to make. You may not have access to fruits and veggies that, some people do. And so both decisions are hard. And, the path that you ultimately choose is what's going to be better. And I think there's no better example than your parents leaving Vietnam because they, were not going to conform to what they were experiencing. They wanted a better life for you. They wanted, for you and your brother to grow up in a very different way than they did. But for you in your life, what is a choosing your hard moment that comes to mind for you?
I would say probably it just goes back to what we just talked about when I was laid off and kind of figure out which path I wanted to go. I mean, I wouldn't say that in my life so far anyway, I've never had to make that really hard decision like my parents did. Like that, to me, that's like, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine. Like if someone told me, okay, you like go to this other country, you don't speak the language, you're gonna bring your kids with you, create a life there, I'd be like, okay. That would be really hard. But I know that my parents obviously would don't look back and don't regret that decision at all. So I would say, I guess it just goes back to in my career, like kind of choosing to go on my own because it has brought me down this path that I never would have imagined at all. Like it's been, I never thought I would be running a business. So it's been great. And I don't regret it one bit. Like that's the best thing that could have happened to me in 2009.
And I love that you talk about like there's no other way. And I think that's probably ultimately what your parents felt, right? Which was like, well, there's no other choice. We're leaving, right? And so, in your own way, like you've experienced that. But you were talking earlier too about people that will be like, "Oh my gosh, like you're so brave." And I continue to be dumbfounded when people say that because people say it to me too at different times. Wow, like you have so much courage, or gosh, so brave, or like what a risk you're taking, or whatever. And I don't know. I'm not immune to fear, right? Nobody is. But there's just no other way. Like it doesn't.
Right.
It just doesn't. There's no peace in staying potentially, or there's no peace in. And I think that sometimes we spend so much effort talking to ourselves about what could happen instead of focusing on like what is possible, right? And the things that are trying to keep us where we're at. And like none of it's going to kill you. Like yes, there's some things in life that will kill you, but I think it's so easy to make those, oh gosh, you chose to leave the firm and go and create your own. None of that was going to kill you, right? Sure,
Right.
there's risks, but potentially like staying could have actually hurt you. You could have had more stress or anxiety or whatever. Like people don't think about that. They always look at the front and be like, oh gosh, if I choose this hard, if I take this leap, this is going to happen to me. And I never really can understand it. Like obviously I empathize and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm compassionate for people, but more often than not, I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to start a podcast out of nowhere and, start a business and all these things that just seem so normal and potentially like there's a through line, I think that if you grow up, in challenging environments, coming from another country, like you knew hard from a very young age. Like you knew challenges and you knew like, well, how am I going to share what my homework is with my parents? Or how do I, like, those are such monumental things, like as a child, that now some of these things that some people find very fearful, you're like, oh yeah, no, like in the grand scheme, it's not that way. So, yeah, fear it's a liar too, which I always, remind myself a lot of the time because usually the best stuff is like you said, I literally couldn't imagine doing anything else. And that's because like greatness was on the other side of fear. Right. And, there's this, I don't know if you've seen the movies Twisters with, Glenn Powell, and he talks about like riding fear. And I was like, I love that because it just doesn't go away, but you learn to wrangle it.
Yeah. You just have to do it. Like, even though it's scary, like so I think it was 2020 is kind of when I started like my TikTok. And I was like, this is going nowhere. Because I would post stuff, but I was not consistent either. And I just kept going, and I was not always consistent throughout since, right? But I would say in the last year or so, I've gotten a lot more consistent. But I have met some of the best clients from TikTok, and it's actually given me a lot of exposure. I'm so thankful, and I've been able to reach more people. Um, but like I look at my first videos, and they're so terrible. I look at them and I'm like cringe. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so bad. But like, you just have to do it. It doesn't. I mean, when you first start something, it's not going to be great. It's going to be terrible. And I think when you expect perfection the first time you do something, and I'm guilty of it, right? Like if something doesn't go my way the first time, I'm like, oh, you just want to give up, but you can't. Like you just have to keep trying and keep getting better, because that's the only way you'll get better is if you keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I can relate to that. And if anybody goes on the Instagram of the podcast and goes all the way back, they'd be like this, it's not pretty. But I love that you're using TikTok as a tool. I love that so much. And I've been able to look at, several of your posts and just, I love that, because I think right now in this climate, we are not all using social media in the context that we should. And we weaponize it, and
Yeah,
it it's so unhealthy,
it
and
is.
it's so unhealthy.
It is. I can, yep, agreed. There's so much good that can come from it, but there's also so much bad.
Yeah, and that's why I love that you're stewarding it well. You are educating people and, giving information that otherwise wouldn't be accessible, and I also think, I've navigated and had challenges with this as a business advisor. I firmly believe when you're in a service-based industry, there's a fine line between, giving everything, right?
Right.
And giving just enough to build trust. And so many people that I've come up the ranks with or have grown in business with want $1 for every single thing that comes out of their mouth or every
Mhm.
single thing they share. And not saying that people like poo-pooed me, but people have wanted me to be like, charge, charge, charge. And I'm like, but no, because there's so many things that build trust, right? Because people are like, oh, look at this tip, this small piece of advice, this idea that I freely gave them. Because for someone like me, I can look at a brick building, in the middle of Bryce Canyon and come up with a business idea. It is not complicated. But for a lot of people, that's not a gift. And so I see that as a gift. And I'm like, well, if I give them that one thing, it's really up to them to do it. Right. And how much more trust am I going to, build with them? That's how I feel about what you're doing on TikTok, is like, you're offering some, like, yes, some of the stuff is readily accessible information, but you don't have to take your time to go and share this and to make sure that it's accessible to people like that need to know it. And again, there's a lot of lawyers out there, attorneys that potentially could be like, no, I want $5 for this minute or whatever it is. And as a result, you have built clients and you've built a reputation, and that far exceeds any dollar value that you're going to get for exchanging some tips.
Right. I think it's about creating value for people. And if you create value for people, then that's what they're going to gravitate towards. And yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, is just creating value. And if it's, I was listening to a podcast earlier, and, people, if the point of you going into business is to make money, well, actually, you should rethink that. And it should be about, how do you solve someone's problems? Because if you can solve problems, then the money will come.
Absolutely.
And so I thought that was a good way to look at business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tweak the question that I have is, I was like, I feel like we've already asked it, but now that you've shared that you're stepping into a new season, right? How long have you been practicing? 15 years?
About almost, 16 years this year going on. Yeah.
So 16 years, and obviously we understand the climate that we're in. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things going on. What are you hoping that in the next 16 years is your legacy? and that people, look at your name, see a photo of you, talk to someone? What are you hoping that they're going to be saying?
It's a good question. So I I would like to be known as the person that when somebody comes to work with me, they have had like the best client experience and that they can be like, wow, like her or her staff got back to me quickly. We knew what was going on with our case and we just had the best like client experience with her. Um, so I want, yeah, so I want to be known as somebody who's honest, who is actually there to help people. Um, and I don't want to be known as like that typical lawyer that's like, oh, all she wants is money. That's all
Mm,
she cares about, right? Like
yeah.
I want to be known as like, okay, they actually really care about people. And so, and I mean, that's every day we work on that. Every day we work on like making sure that our clients are taken care of, that they know what's going on in their case. If they call us, someone's going to answer the phone. Because I think when you're dealing with such an important aspect of someone's life, they want you they want to know that they can count on you
Yeah.
to like answer their questions. And yeah, so I would say someone that's well respected in, among her colleagues, among the community, and just somebody that has values.
Mm, yeah. That's beautiful. And I think you're on your way. If not
Thank you.
already there. And I couldn't help but like, think of just how much how much every part of your life is preparing you for the next 16 years, and just all that your parents experienced and how they raised you to work hard and how, you've just continued to adapt and to change and to grow. And then now you're doing the same thing for your children and giving them the next generation of what does that look like from my parents that sacrificed everything, right? What does that sacrifice look for me and my husband? What is it like? I just think it's really incredible. And I'm honestly excited to keep tabs on you and to keep knowing what's going on because I think that you're only going to continue to grow from here. And not just like, I'm not talking about business in general. I'm just talking about, influence and, legacy in that space that we were just talking about.
Well, thank you. I think important thing is just always like to stay humble, right? That
Yeah.
it's always going to be work. Um, and you just have to show up every day, even when you don't want to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And then to your point, showing up and doing what's necessary, showing up is 90% of it. And then what's the next 10%, like you were saying in your own practice? Um, you've already given a lot of tips already to, young lawyers, but I want to kind of broaden it necessarily not from a lawyer or someone that's going into law school, but what advice would you give a young man or woman looking to find purpose in their career?
Mm. So I've heard that, like, for some people, they already know, which I think is amazing. I would not say that I was one of those people necessarily. But for some, they're like from a young age, they're like, I'm going to do this. This is what I intend to do, and I think that's awesome. But I think for a lot of people, they also are like, I don't know what my purpose is. What am I going to do? And I think part of it comes with trying a lot of different things to see what interests you. And when you're young, I think you do have a lot more freedom to do that. Once
Yeah.
you get married and have kids, I think that free time to explore is much more limited.
Yeah.
So while you're young, I think people should try a lot of different things to see what interests them. Now, there are going to be circumstances where you can't necessarily just drop everything and go, make clay pots because that's your passion, because you have a family that you need to take care of. You have kids. And so I think in those scenarios, you might have to get a job that you may not love. But I think there's certain aspects of jobs that you can find joy in
Mm.
if you think about it in the bigger picture. Like if you're a server at a nice restaurant, right? Maybe you're serving somebody who just got married, like a couple that just got married, and you're giving them an awesome experience. And they can remember, like, oh, do you remember that one time we went to dinner right after our wedding and it was so awesome? We had such a great experience. But truly, I mean, if it's a toxic work environment or you hate the job, then you should, you
Yeah.
probably should go somewhere else. But I think I was thinking about that question this morning too. And sometimes you're going to have to take jobs that you may not love and you pursue your passion on the side.
Mm.
And until you can kind of get that passion going where you are actually able to also make money from it, then that's great. But I think people need to, if you truly ultimately want to pursue your passion but maybe there's not a lot of money in it, I think that people have to also think about um, their finances. And I think it's with, like, for example, lifestyle creep. You know what that is? The more money you make, the more money you spend. And it
Yeah.
almost seems like you could be making $500,000 a year, but still be living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Because you get into that mentality of like, oh, well, I'm making more money. I'm going to buy a nicer car. I'm going to buy a bigger house. And then you realize that you now have like golden handcuffs. You're like,
Mm.
okay, I make a ton of money, but I have no way out of this unless I have to give up my car, unless I have to sell my house to downsize. And so I think that people, if they truly want to pursue their passion, they might have to be humbled for a little while where they might not be able to buy the nicest car or buy the nicest house. And instead save money and work toward that passion. And then hopefully if you've gotten to a point where you've saved enough money, you can, go full throttle. But I think I feel like the financial aspect of pursuing your passion isn't always talked about.
Mm. So true. And I think there's so many things that you shared that I was like, oh my gosh, yes. I love the part where you really talked about, like, are you willing to be humbled? And are you willing to be, like, stripped in a sense, because you can't have both, right? Like, and again, I think there's a lot of people who want these things, but aren't willing to do anything it takes for these things. And I can relate in my own life currently as I pursue, growth in this podcast and public speaking and my health and wellness business. And, in those financial spaces, it's definitely not what I desire it to be. But I'm also not living a six-figure life, right? I've been extremely humbled in these past couple of years of, like, can you live with enough? Like we were talking about with your parents, like, can you live with just enough? And obviously being hopeful and being, pursuing the dreams and desires you have on your heart. But like you said, you can't just decide to go into a passion. I think that's it. Like, you just can't decide that you're going to go pursue your passion and not sacrifice. It takes a lot. And a lot of it is financial. And also, like, what are you willing not to do,
Yeah.
to have that? Um, and trying new things. That was such a great tip too. Um, and and an element of just, like, listening to your heart. I think there's so many people that, are potentially like our parents' generation, the generation before, like, kind of push those feelings aside. They push the yearning and those feelings because the providing for happened and they needed to put the money on the table and for value in that. But I love that you said, well, do it on the side. Like, don't just ignore it. And I'm a firm believer, like, don't wait for retirement to start living because
Yeah.
you're going to be 60 and you can't hike the same way you could at 30.
Yes, exactly. It's so true.
And so many of our like, I have aunts and uncles and my grandparents were like that, like, oh, we'll do it when we retire. I'm like, I could actually be dead. Like that,
Yeah.
not random. Like, I could actually be dead. So how do you find that, like, give and take, right?
Yeah. It's a constant struggle, I think. Like I had listened to this book called Die with Zero.
Hmm.
And the premise of the book is basically like the point of your life is to live your life to the fullest. And then at the end of your life that you have spent all of your money because, I mean, your money doesn't go with you to the grave, right? And obviously it's about being financially responsible too. And it's not like,
Right.
he's not like blow all your money while you're alive, but it's being smart about it where you're living your life while you still can, while you're still younger and you can go hike and go ski or whatever, go travel. Because, when you're retired, 65, 68, I mean, are you going to have the energy to want to
Right.
go hike? Sure, some people do. Are you going to have the energy to travel? And I think about that a lot now that after I listened to that book, like, okay, what's the point? Yes, be financially responsible, but also maybe you might want to spend a couple $100 more for a better experience, right? Maybe an upgrade, because what if you died tomorrow?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
money, where does that money go?
I love the saying, there's no U-Haul at the end of a hearse.
Yeah, so true.
And we just don't. And again, I think that, I was not raised to understand like financial responsibility or just like literacy.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've had to take initiative for and to learn myself and to seek out professionals in that space. And so, I had the opportunity of taking a course a couple of years ago and it was amazing. And there's so many things that I got from it. However, the course wasn't really, I've been an entrepreneur for so long, the course wasn't geared towards entrepreneurs. So it left a lot of like ambiguity on how to move forward, but also so much of it felt stifling of that mindset of like, get out of debt, but like, don't live. And I just was like, I don't feel peace 100%
Yeah.
about this. And so I definitely think to your point, be responsible, sacrifice. But if you love to, I'm a single girl right now. I love to go eat out. And so just budget for it. If you
Yeah,
don't budget for it,
exactly.
that's different. But I take girls trips every couple of years with my best friends and we do it. And one of them is a mom and the three of us are not married. And it's a thing we look forward to. I was telling you, we came out to Utah a couple of years ago. We planned 2 years in advance. Like this is not something that we just randomly decide, but we're intentional and we plan and it fills our cup for the next 2 years until we come back together. And like you said, like just what does that look like for you? But how can you be intentional, but also recognize that like tomorrow is not promised and retirement may not happen the way that you think it does,
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's beautiful and a beautiful way to take, I think that for our generation, for me, at least, I grew up with parents that like, my grandparents were a product of the Depression. And so things were idolized. And so, it was a very jammed, packed house. And
Mhm.
my sister and I, my younger sister and I, we were like, I would much rather have less things and have more experiences,
Yeah.
get to travel. Right. So I think that definitely aligns with what we were sharing about the book and just being mindful of your time and how you spend your money and your passions and all of that. This was incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
And I feel like we barely like, I'm like, now I know you, but I'm like, oh, I want to know more. Like, I just feel like I'm excited to continue to stay connected and
Yeah,
to,
absolutely.
just to support each other and for other people to hear your story. And, like this was, I'm excited to keep staying connected and get to learn more about each other. Cause I feel like we just got a precipice. It's like we went out and got a drink and now we're like, oh, but wait, like I want to know more. So thank you for that. And I want to wrap up with 2 lifestyle questions. I would love to know, again, we talked offline of how I've had some of the best coffee in Utah. And so I don't know if you drink coffee, but if you do, or if you don't, and there's a favorite shop you love to go to, what is your favorite coffee shop or drink shop in Utah? And what's your go-to order?
So I don't drink a ton of coffee, but as of right now, one of the coffee shops that I really, really like is called Loki, Loki.
Okay.
And it's near kind of downtown Salt Lake area, and it's a really cute little coffee shop. So yeah, I usually when I go there, it's a seasonal drink right now. But I've been getting like the hazelnut latte.
Delicious. Okay, there was in the edit. I used to have a different question and I can't remember. I will have to send you this restaurant. You've probably been there. When we did the Utah trip, we ended in Salt Lake City. And thank you for giving me that. I don't we went to that coffee shop and we sought out a lot of coffee shops, but there was this restaurant. Like we walked there from our hotel. It was in a random neighborhood and it was made to like made to order menu. We thought we were lost. We're like, where it doesn't look like it belongs in here. I'll have to send it to you. It was one of the best
Yeah.
culinary experiences I've had. It was literally the menu came out that day. I don't even think you got to pick. I don't remember picking. I think maybe there was a couple choices on each, and that was it. And it was Halloween. So there was some themed cocktails and I'll send it to you because it was one of my favorite and kind of honestly, I think my first open kitchen experience in 2021 where you got to see everything and just full transparency and fresh and delicious.
Yeah, I'd love to know. I don't think I've ever been there.
Yeah.
I've never had that type of experience here.
Gosh. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to find the Instagram. It was like so good. And when those kind of restaurants when you go, you and your husband probably date nights, you're like, there's an intentionality of like, okay, we're gonna enjoy it. We're gonna get the appetizer, or we're gonna get the
Yeah.
dinner and the drink. And that was that experience of like we literally tapped into everything, and it was just like the service was amazing. So if someone else can benefit from this restaurant,
Yeah, send
I
it my
will
way.
absolutely share it with you. So the next question is, what book is a book you've read multiple times and you believe someone listening should read?
So I'm usually not a repeater
Okay.
with books and like movies, but a recent book that I have been reading is a new book by Mel Robbins called The Let Them Theory.
So good.
And yeah, so I'm not quite finished. I'm almost finished, but I mean, the premise basically is you have to let people think what they're going to think, act the way that they're going to act, because you have zero control over how they think and how they act. And then you have to let yourself control your own emotions and how you want to react to things. And that's kind of the basic premise. But I've enjoyed that book. I think it's great. I think a lot of the fear I think people have in doing things is because they're just so afraid of what people will think of them. And
Number one.
no one's it's impossible to have everybody like you. Someone is not going to like you. It is what it is. Not everyone's going to click with you. Not everyone's going to like what you like. And that's just the world.
Yeah.
And I think if you're true to yourself, then that's all you can do. And at least at the end of the day, you can go to sleep at night and be like, I know who I am and I'm being true to myself. And if however people react to that, that's going to be on them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have not had the chance to read the book, but I follow Mel Robbins and I listen to usually everything she comes up with a reel I'll be listening to. And it's powerful. Like that book is so powerful as it relates to family, as it relates to like, I ran into a girl over the holidays and I was working a client's shop for her. And we had just gotten on the topic of our mothers. And I was like, yeah, I just keep talking to my mom. Like, she's not eating enough protein. And like, I'm like, Mom, I don't know if I'm going to have kids, but you're not helping the situation. You got to be healthy. You got to be ready. And this girl's like, yeah, I wrote my mom a 2-page PDF of like the things that she could be doing better. And it was one of those moments of like, okay, like I just have to let her, right? Like I have to let her. And I think that can be some of the most challenging things, whether you're a parent or a child or you care about somebody, is that you want to interject, you want to share, but you just have to let them and then trust that it's going to get sorted out for the best. But that means we can't control things. And that is a challenge.
Yeah, she has a chapter in the book about that, about trying to change people's behaviors. And I mean, ultimately, you know this, I'm sure, that you can't change somebody. Like they are going to change when they are ready to change. You're going to be ready for it before they are. And you just have to let them, but also support them.
Yeah.
Their journey.
Absolutely. And just, I've learned too, I think this is also a gift that women have that we then use on men is like third party validation, right? And I've started to get really strategic with that of like, if I say something and someone's not listening to the idea, I either will plant the seed with someone else or be like, oh, what do you think? And then they tell the person that I'm trying to tell it to. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, did you hear that Jenny said this thing? And I go, yes, I did. I did hear that. That's strange, right? And I'm like, like over here being like, not wasting any of the time and effort, trying to tell them the thing. And when we trust and we just kind of release and let those things happen, we'll actually be shocked at how much influence we actually have on those people that we love the most, that like they're already thinking about what we're thinking, right? They're already thinking, well, what would mom say? What would dad say? And then, so you just have to like kind of trust that if it's something that's meant to be your insight and that it's not serving them, that they will come to the conclusion of like, okay, based on these things and what the love and the care and the compassion we've shown before, that they'll, make it right and do best for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Super, super cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing the coffee shop. I will absolutely share the restaurant with you. Where can people find you, whether it's, social media stuff or have questions, legal questions, whatever you share, I'll end up typing it out into the show notes so people can access it.
Yeah. So TikTok username is Lawyer Lean. For my Instagram, it's lawyer_lean. And then those are probably the two best places and I have YouTube. And it's also just at Lawyer Lean. But those would be the best places, I think, to reach out. I'm working on my website right now, my new website. So that's not out quite yet. But essentially, it's going to be called Green Immigration is what the new law firm will be called. So the website, I have the website address. It'll be greenimmigration.us. It's just not up yet. But yeah, you can find me there.
Very cool.
On all of those social media platforms.
By the time this episode comes out, hopefully the website will be done. So I'll put it right in there and people can access that. And what I love about the show too is when people listen, they may not need your services, but they may know someone that could, and so just referrals and hearing your heart and hearing why you do what you do, can be the gateway into helping someone that they love that, could need your help with immigration. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about immigration is because it's federal law, I can help people anywhere. Even though I'm in Utah, I actually have a lot of clients who are out of state, even out of country. So as long as it's about U.S. immigration law, I can help people.
That's actually really good to know because I honestly, I didn't even say anything, but I was thinking to myself, how, Utah's a locked state. Does that limit her from being able to serve people when so much of the people that are coming to the United States are not necessarily entering through Utah, right? They're coming from different parts. So that is fun. I didn't know that. Is that the only type of law that is kind of countrywide?
No, there's others intellectual property, also some tax law, tax as well, when you're dealing with federal tax issues. But yeah, family law, criminal law, estate planning law, that's very state specific.
Okay. I learned something new today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Thank you so much, Lean. I really appreciate it and excited to share all the ways people can connect with you and continue to grow friendship and, get to know more of each other. So again, thank you so much. You guys follow us on TikTok, Instagram, follow Lean on all the ways that she shared. You can find us on all those platforms. This actually will probably be on YouTube right now as we're talking about it. That is what we have been growing to in the middle of 2025. And so as always, do good things, make me proud, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.